Now, I'm going to tell you a dirty little secret. If you
Dirty.
are a soil scientist, you ought to be one of the first ones in church. And we do have a friend who is a soil scientist and is a professor at Michigan State University, and he is actually first in church. But we're going to talk a little bit about the chemistry of dirt. Welcome to Revolution Against Evolution. I'm your host, Doug Sharp.
And I'm your co-host, Rich Gear, here as well. And I liked your introduction, Doug. A dirty little secret. I like that. That's pretty good. So, not so secretive though.
Yeah, what I'm going to talk about is the chemistry of dirt on the Earth and also the chemistry of dirt on Mars and what the differences are. And the difference is quite obvious is that Mars doesn't have any organic matter. Now, that should be very significant if you are one of these scientists who are trying to say that there's life evolving or once evolved on Mars. I remember well, just a couple of shows ago, we did a show on that, on how the probe Perseverance dug up some dirt and they found some minerals that they thought were caused because of interactions with life. And we pretty much debunked that on that particular TV show. But let's take a look, first of all, what the dirt is and why it matters if we're creation scientists. It's basically soil is what it is. It's a dynamic substance that is forms the foundation for terrestrial life. And its chemical composition and interactions play a crucial role in supporting plant growth, cycling nutrients, and maintaining environmental health. And so dirt is composed of several different things. First of all, minerals. The primary component of dirt is mineral particles such as from weathering of rocks. And these include sand, silt, which is medium particles, and clay small particles. Common minerals found in dirt are quartz, feldspar, mica, and calcite. Then there's organic matter. You have decomposed plant and animal material that contribute organic compounds such as humic acids, proteins, and carbohydrates. This organic layer is essential for nutrient availability and soil structure. Then there's water. Water in dirt and acts as a solvent. It facilitates chemical reactions. It transports nutrients to plants. Then you have air, spaces between the dirt particles with oxygen, carbon dioxide, and nitrogen. And then enables respiration for roots and soil microbes. Then there's some living organisms like microbes, fungi, insects, and worms that contributes to the breakdown of organic matter and promote nutrient cycling. What do you think the chemistry of dirt on Mars might look like?
Well, Doug, the thing about it is that we've talked about this before. Mars, uh, it's sterile up there. There's nothing really there that's the minerals probably are there. I don't know whether they have sand or quartz or anything. I don't know what they have up there. Do you know, Doug?
Well,
But
I've got
the
it here. So if
you got it. Okay, I figured you would. But so the mineral content is possible, but the organic compounds that are needed, because you're talking about because we were talking earlier today, and this is a big science fiction thing for years. It's been for almost 100 years, probably a long time anyway. They've talked about terraforming Mars or other planets, but Mars doesn't have really anything there to start with to be able to terraform it. I mean, as far as it kind of goes back to the old law of biogenesis, life always comes from life. organic materials seem to me were originally living things or living, or at least proteins or organic matter that has been broken down, and that's one of the components of soil, correct? As you just listed. So, and that's not there. Now the water, they're trying to find water there, but even that is not enough, and the air is very, very, very thin to non-existent. I don't know whether there's a little bit of air on Mars or not, but the water, they keep trying to find it. They say that one time the planet might have been covered in water. You and I, we've talked about that before. Why I always find it an interesting observation that these same people won't believe in a worldwide flood, but a planet that's basically desert, they believe was once covered in water. I always think that's finally quite ironic. But the point of it is, water itself is not enough. The missing component, the organic material, is not there. And even if you try to transplant organic material from Earth to there, I'm not sure they could do that. I mean, you may be going to more into that, Doug, if that's you. I mean, I just don't think it's possible based on what we know.
Now, let's take a look at the chemical components of Martian soil. It's actually called, let me see, regolith is what it's called.
Regolith. Why is it called that? Do you know?
Well, they decided that the regolith is different because the soil is so different that they give it a different name, apparently. But
Oh, what makes it
anyway,
different? Good.
the main chemical components of Martian soil is iron oxide, which gives the characteristic red color.
Why it's the red planet.
The
Okay.
red planet, yeah. And then you have silicon dioxide, which is sands. And then you have magnesium, aluminum, calcium, and potassium. And these elements are present as oxides. And they say it's important in understanding Mars' geologic history. But then there's perchlorates. These are salts containing chlorine and oxygen, which are highly reactive and have implications both for chemistry and potential biology. Then there's sulfates and carbonates, and these minerals suggest past interactions with water. And other features of Martian soil is very fine and dusty, but also contains some sand-sized larger particles. But ultimate thing that is that there's no organic materials in Martian soil. If if there was any hope of life on Mars, you would find some organic materials of abundance of it in order to sustain life on Mars and to grow stuff. So this movie that we saw a few years ago, where there was a guy stranded on Mars, left there, and he decided what he's going to do is he take the leftover potatoes and plant them and have them come up and provide food for him. Well, the soil doesn't provide enough organic material to do that. It's just you don't have any organics for it to come together like that. And I find it pretty amazing that the people don't pick up on this, that you need organic materials to start life, and but you don't have any organic materials unless you have life. And so
That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
in the beginning on the earth, the soil must have been rich in nutrients and organic materials enough provided by God when he created it in order to have the grasses and the trees and the all the plants come together. And you needed those first before you could have creatures on the earth. And so the order of creation shows that the plants came first, and then the created beings, and they actually have to all come together because there's a cycle of food being consumed and crap being produced.
So, Doug, let me ask you this question. If they, let's say, took organic material from Earth and took it up in a spaceship and then mixed it in with the soil there, could that possibly do anything? I don't know whether that's possible or not either.
Well, you need quite an abundance of it, and
Right.
the fact that there's no and nothing for them to form organic materials from up there, they'd have to have some sort of plant-based materials that would fix the carbon dioxide that's in the thin atmosphere and to produce
Yeah,
plant material, which would produce more soil and then have more plant material. And so
yes.
there's a article that I sent you, Rich. It says, the article is, could we really turn Mars green? And it's called talking about terraforming, like you just said. And the concept involves altering an alien's world, atmosphere, temperature, surface conditions to resemble Earth's environment, such as adding oxygen to the air, creating liquid water on the surface, and establishing a stable climate. And they were talking about, and they said terraforming Mars is sort of classified to science fiction, grand vision, make a world teeming with life.
Well, I
And
think that's why
so,
a lot of these stories that I've read over the years, you know, I enjoy science fiction, but I understand that it's science fiction.
yeah.
But that's why a lot of times they'll have them in these encapsulated domes, so to speak. They'll have them they
Mhm.
won't be like out in the planet. They'll be like in these artificially geodomes or whatever.
Mhm.
And so and that's why and then slowly but surely they would make one section uh, be able to be supportive, and then they'd move it on to it, and then they'd open to maybe create another dome. I don't know. I don't know where they get the ability to supply the energy, the all the logistics of it. The technology even now would be beyond anything I can imagine. But I do have this caveat. I think I mentioned this to you, Doug, and I've always thought about this. I'm not sure exactly what it means, but it harkens back to the Tower of Babel scenario when the Lord Himself talks about why He confused the languages, and He confused the languages because they're going to build a tower whose top reached into the heavens. Now, I don't think it literally was meant to reach into the heavens. My personal opinion, it was meant to be an occultic communication center to be able to speak to the spirits, if you will. It was an occultic. The seat of Babylonian mystery religions and all that stuff goes to Babel. But that aside, it was the idea to communicate with perhaps demonic or angelic beings or whatever. But that aside, that sounds pretty science fiction itself. But the idea that they were going to do this kind of thing, and I've always thought, yeah, otherwise, why wouldn't they start building the tower on a mountain? Why would they start on a plane? The idea that they were going to try to make a tower that was literally going to reach into the heavenly places. We built buildings a lot taller than that. But the thing I want to get to is the fact that the Lord Himself said, unless we confuse their languages, nothing they propose in their mind will be prevented to them. They can do anything they set their hearts to do. The idea that human being is very creative. We've been made in the image of God, and we have this ability. And I've always thought to myself that if the Lord does not want us to do something, there will always be some kind of a biologic, physiological, some kind of a divine intervention to make things impossible to really go too far. I think, by the way, that's what happened with cloning, quite frankly. Cloning has not been successful. This whole idea of we're going to harvest, going to make clones into organs, and I know we're getting a little far afield here, but the idea that God puts a restraint on. I remember Dolly the sheep. Oh, we got this clone, and she was a mess. She was a genetic mess, and it didn't really go very much farther. You want to have a clone of a clone of a clone? Never happened. There was a movie that came back years ago called Multiplicity, I think. Michael Keaton. They kept cloning himself because he wanted somebody else to, because he was too busy. But each clone they made was inferior. We can't even get that far. And so the idea that we're going to terraform the planet Mars, biologically, physiologically, the technology we have now, it is beyond our any ken we have. But I don't put it past human beings to do things beyond what we could possibly imagine. But unless God, but God may would well prevent it. He has not prevented us from exploring out there a little bit, but compared to the universe, we haven't explored anything. But the idea there's constraints like, for instance, light speed and things that we can't only go so fast, and there are just certain limitations that we have no matter what we want to do. And I just always wonder about that. But we're dealing right primarily with what you talk about the idea, just the physical impossibility of having organic material nowhere to be found on Mars makes it very problematic for something. And that's just the naturalistic arguments, Doug.
Mhm.
which goes against it. We are made in this ball, this blue ball. That every time we go out and we try to explore it, I think it's our nature to do it. I think God is pleased when we give Him the glory and explore. But the reality is there are limits, fixed limits. I think God Himself has put on there. But this blue ball, He stretched out the whole universe to make a special place for humankind to live. This is this is why I think we have it's a push me pull you kind of reality. We don't want it. We are humble, but at the same time we're arrogant. And why are we that way? Because God, we instinctively know we're special. And so but if we use that to come up with hubris to say, well, we can do anything because we're gods, that's presumption. That's the thing that goes beyond the pale. But we are special. This ball, which we've talked about in many shows, we and other people have talked about it. If the Earth was just a little bit closer to the sun, or a little bit farther away from the sun, a little bit smaller, the moon wasn't where it was at. All these things which are divinely put into place so that we can have a place to live. And I'm thinking, the idea that we can do this thing is just another example, if of human beings trying to play God. I'm not saying we can't explore and do this thing, but these people have no idea to give glory to God in their experiments. They have no idea. They want to find alien life out there. They want to find something out there that presumes that God is not God or that we're not special. At the same
Well,
time, instinctively, we know we are.
millions of years is not going to help them.
Not
And
going to help.
that's
No, millions of
the
years.
trouble is that in order for something, for the life to work on the earth, everything has to be in place with the food source, with animals and and all the creatures on the earth and plants producing, fixing carbon dioxide to make organic
Yes,
materials, and the animals having hemoglobin to transport oxygen uh, to the various parts of the body, and those two different things working in harmony. It all has to come together all at once in order for it to work. And if for it to start, you have to have the organic material there in the beginning. And I think one of the benefits of the global flood is it just put down all that organic material as
yeah.
soil, and given us a fertile landscape to grow our crops. And it'd be interesting to speculate on what the soil of the earth might have looked like before the flood. But I would say that when God in His wisdom created the soil to produce abundant life, and obviously it was probably more lush at that time than it was now. So there's a lot of things to consider with this. I'd like to go through what they were talking about in this article about terraforming Mars. Could we
Okay.
really turn Mars green? And it's with in a article in Universe Today. And what talked about was they thought the first thing is that they have to have some sort of warming to take place on the planet. You're not going to make it work. And so they were trying to figure out how to raise our Mars temperature tens of degrees within a few decades, and using engineered aerosols or greenhouse gases. And then to take the water that's in the ice and the ice caps and try to utilize that to form an ocean. Uh, and so that's the second thing. And then you have to get the establishing microbial life. And then this is where they're going to try to synthesize biology to create microbes that thrive in harsh conditions. And then they have to have combined temperature tolerance, radiation resistance, and indifference to atmospheric pressure. And so they figure, well, they can cover Mars with all this algae, and it's within decades, and then transform the atmosphere through photosynthesis. they don't explain where photosynthesis comes from. All right, let's engineer the microbe with photosynthesis. So we got algae. The final phase stretches across centuries or even millennia, building an oxygen-rich atmosphere thick enough to support complex life. They were going to form domed habitats
That's
and
what I was talking about earlier. Yeah. Yep.
and using water electrolysis to give breathable air. But they don't have the materials on Mars to do this. You'd have to transport it there, and a bit expensive. I'm not going to designate any of my tax dollars towards that.
Yeah. Well, I think it's beyond prohibitive at this point in time. I mean, as it's saying, maybe they could set up a little dome thing where they transport organic materials. And but I mean, I don't know what they're going to do to generate energy. I mean, maybe they could. Maybe they come up with a nuclear. It had to be nuclear. It would have to be nuclear powered, wouldn't you think, Doug? I mean, I
Yeah,
can't even imagine what they would use because solar would definitely not be strong enough on Mars. You're too far. I don't think there's ways to do it. And obviously, they don't have enough organic material to create oil and gas. So perhaps fusion or fission uh, kind of ideas, And it's just fascinating to think about those ideas of how they could probably do something, but in these domed little pockets, and then finally they connect them together at some point, like a Mars would be like the ultimate geodesic dome or something, you know what I mean? It'd be all these little pods that were around. But I talk about millennia of time, yeah, it would be, yeah, based on technology we have today, it's not even conceivable. But it is an interesting thing, Doug, to think about the the possibilities and the challenges to try to do something that seems outwardly impossible. But again, I believe the Lord has created this world to be unique, and I believe it's supposed to stay uniquely unique. Okay, but I could be wrong in that. But I mean, I just say go ahead and try. It's kind of like go ahead and try to look for aliens out there. They're never going to, I don't believe, based on my understanding of scripture, that they're ever going to find an alien because I don't believe extraterrestrial life would be cursed for something that Adam did.
right.
I, I don't, it makes no sense. And that Christ would die for us, but then those people out there would be all creation was subject to futility.
Wasn't
Um,
C.S. Lewis speculating on that in his space series trilogy?
Yeah, space trilogy. Yeah, he had a thing where it was on Venus. Of course, we know Venus is not uninhabitable, but at that time they didn't know those things. They had a Mars, and then that hideous strength. That book scared me, Doug. I got to tell you, that hideous strength. Did you ever
Hmm.
read that, Doug?
I
That
did
hideous
read
strength.
that, and that was only one of the three I read.
That was the most scary one to me. That really put the fear in me. The other ones were kind of more science fictiony and were kind of fun to read, but it's like Edgar Rice Burroughs back in the day. He was more of a secular. He was more of an evolutionary kind of a guy, but inventor of Tarzan and all these guys, John Carter of Mars, and all these things. But they were written in times when they thought there could be life on Mars. That's the War of the Worlds, that whole idea. Science fiction has played with Mars for forever. But there might have been there's life on Mars, or there might have been life at one time on Mars. And it's interesting, Doug, how these old theories keep getting dredged up. This is
Mhm.
100-year-old story, maybe 150-year-old ideas have come around. And they still hold on to them. It's just like the idea, to me, the bird dinosaur thing. It's just like this is an old theory. Even Huxley thought that the bird might have been the claws looked like a dinosaur claws. And so they keep holding on to old theories, and they regurgitate the same old theories that just didn't work back 100 years ago, and they think they're going to work out now because somebody hasn't heard about them before. But we have heard about them. So
Well,
I don't
here we
understand.
can we can propose a scientific experiment that they can do in the next probe that they send up there to set it up so that you can take some of the Martian soil and try to grow something in it. That'd be one thing to try. Make some sort of environment that they think they can create life out of it. So they take the materials that are is in the soil and in the environment of Mars right now and see if life is possible.
I mean,
And
I think, Doug, that's
assemble
good.
the amino acids and the DNA and everything else, and created all the materials that are there on Mars. So there's your challenge, Mr. Evolutionist. See what you can do
Yeah.
with it.
The thing about it is, I think they might be up to it. I guess they're thinking that life has this, like Jeff Goldblum in Jurassic Park. Life will find a way. And some of these living things that are found in the steam vents in the bottom of the oceans, and
Mhm.
some of the most hostile cold environments, and lava thermal vents and things. They're thinking that maybe, well, maybe something could adapt itself to it. But to me, all of that just begs the question: who began the process in the first place? We can only try to duplicate something that's there, and Doug, we can't even create a piece of granite in inorganic material. We can't even make real granite,
Yeah, if you try to make
let alone
granite
living thing.
in the laboratory, you get rhyolite, not granite. And so,
Yeah, and we can't do
what
it.
was the conditions of the primeval Earth that
I know.
God put together when He created this planet? So that's the question. And we have a God that we can serve. We can have a God that we can worship because we can see the evidence for Him in life. And to propose anything different you get rabbit trails that just take you down into absurdity, which that's what we're getting here with these ideas that you can maybe terraform Mars and make it into a habitable planet. I don't think
And
that.
I like set up an experiment. See if it's even doable. I think the idea of us exploring and trying to do things is not wrong in and of itself. It's the idea behind it it's so frustrating. The hubris, the arrogance that we come up with, thinking we can do something that has been restricted. But I have no problem with them trying to come up with it. I mean, obviously we have gotten Mars soil. I mean, have do we actually have Mars soil on the Earth now?
Well, we can just create the same chemical elements that it is in Mars
Okay,
soil and
because
create an
we
environment.
know what that is. Like,
So
yeah,
we
you were
could just have an environment that emulates Mars, and here on the Earth, see if we can actually do an experiment
yeah, yeah.
that will produce a living system. But where are you going to get all the carbon atoms? You're going to get the oxygen, you get the water, you're going to get the methane. Anything like that that's going to put
Well,
together
Doug,
life. It isn't going to work, man.
it
And
reminds me of that old joke, Doug, about the guy who was arrogant, shakes his fist at God, and God actually answers him out of voice, and he says, "I can do anything you can do, God." And well, you create life, I can do that. And he goes, pick up. He says, "Well, created life out of the dirt." And the guy goes to pick up some dirt, and the Lord says, "Get your own dirt."
that's right, yeah.
You know what I mean, it's like we
Well,
can't even.
we're running out of time, Rich, here. So, any last thought? I think that it's going to be a futile thing, nothing that we should waste our tax money on, in
No,
my
I agree with
view.
that.
And so, I hope you enjoyed our show tonight on Revolution Against Evolution. We'll see you next time on Revolution Against Evolution.